Chapter 19, Back to the Hunting Grounds. The morning of the first day of school, I met Jenny on the corner of Western Avenue and Potomac Street. She showed up with a bunch of her friends. We all walked together, then separated when we got to the school. Papo and Speedy were going around asking all the new kids in school what gang they belonged to. I don't know what made me follow them around, but I did. I therefore gave the impression that I was either a Spanish lord or an unknown. While school was in session, I rarely left the neighborhood unless it was to visit either Jenny or China. Papo had forgot about the whipping he received from the Cobras, and we became close friends again. I began representing, flashing gang signs for the lords even though I wasn't a member. When I went by Jenny's or China's, I would represent the Kings. I did it for the fun of it. I didn't really think it was anything serious. Jenny and I became inseparable during school. After school, I would walk her home, go back to the hood, play baseball or get high, then go back to her house at night for our usual sex session. We rarely talked about anything meaningful. Our conversations revolved mostly around sex, how it felt, and what we should try next. With China, it was different. We did kiss, but that's as far as it went. Mostly, we talked about what we wanted and what we didn't want. We shared our dreams and expressed sympathy for each other's unfortunate positions in life. I looked forward to seeing Jenny at school and when I was horny. But when I wanted a friend, I went to China. In fact, when I had sex with Jenny, I would often pretend that it was China or somebody else. The kisses China and I shared soon became deeper and more passionate. I began to have the same sexual thoughts about her that I had about Jenny. Yet somehow I gained a respect for China that kept me from following through on those feelings. At school, my involvement with Papo and Speedy was affecting my grades. I was constantly cutting class or getting high. The nickname China gave me, Little Loco, began appearing on the school walls and all in the surrounding area. One day we were coming out of the cafeteria and Speedy spotted a rival gang sign on some guy's folder. We followed him into the stairway area where Speedy approached him. The guy said he was a Latin disciple. I didn't know the Latin disciples were at war with the Kings. Since the unknowns were united with the Kings, they were at war with them as well. I asked him if he knew Chico. A look of relief appeared on his face as if he was among friends. He said that Chico was his chief. When he said that, Papo and Speedy began beating him. The guy pulled out his pencil and tried to stab me with it. I retaliated. I kicked him in the abdomen 3 times as he bent over trying to guard himself from Speedy and Papo's blows. I kicked him again in the throat area. He began to choke and fell to the floor gasping for air. Papo and Speedy backed off. I kept beating on him and ended up pushing him down the stairs. I wanted to go after him and continue beating on him, but Speedy pulled me away and out of there. We went outside to the restaurant across the street from the school. A few minutes later, an ambulance arrived and carried the guy out. From the restaurant, we could see detectives walking around asking questions. I was getting pretty scared, but one of Speedy's boys assured me that there were guys walking around making sure nobody talked. Papo, Speedy, and I decided that it was in our best interest to leave the school area. I suggested we go hang out at Kedzie or at Armitage. Papo and Speedy agreed. My seriousness about school and education took a turn for the worse. School wasn't the same. It ceased being a place I adored where the desire for knowledge engulfed me. Instead, it became a place to win a popularity contest. I had become a full-time hoodlum. Only I didn't consider myself lost because I wasn't an actual member of a gang. Clemente High School was nothing more than a hunting ground, and its students were my prey. How unfortunate for all of us. We got to Kedzie and Armitage and saluted the usual group of kings and queens that hung out there. China was across the street with Morena and a couple of other girls. I had hoped to see China there. China's problems at home had made it hard for her to concentrate in school, so she had just about stopped going. She saw me and immediately came toward us. Speedy saw her crossing the street and said that he was going to get her and for us to watch. I was going to make sure he stayed away from her, but then decided to just watch and see how she would react. Speedy walked up to her with all the confidence in the world and introduced himself. China told him her name, pointed at me and said, "And that's my boyfriend, King Little Loco." I laughed at Speedy and walked away with China. China and I went on our usual walk to Humboldt Park and spent most of the day there. I hung around at Kedzie and Armitage until dawn. Papo and Speedy had gone back to the Lords' hood before I got back from the park. China had been staying with a friend and had no intention of going home. For some reason, I got it in my mind that maybe China and I would go farther than just kissing now that she wasn't living at home. I asked her if she wanted me to stay with her. She said no. Her friend's parents were church people and she didn't want them to see us together. I pursued sexual activity with China, but not as aggressively as I had with Jenny. China was in the mood for conversation and became very upset when she noticed I was paying attention to her body instead of her words. She pushed me away from her, told me she would see me when I wasn't thinking about my dick, then walked away. I thought about stopping her and decided not to. She was right. At that moment, I was thinking with my dick. I left Kedzie and Armitage and went by Jenny's. Jenny wouldn't care if I didn't listen to her talk. She wanted me to think and speak with my dick.